Long time ago, in the ancient Okuku Kingdom, there flowed a vast river known as Odo-Pupa River. The river wasn't just any ordinary water body. It was home to fascinating creatures that looked half human and half fish. The Majalor, as the villagers called them, had lived there for generations. Every morning, children would rush to the riverbank, their small feet kicking up dust as they ran. "Look, the mermaids are coming!" a child would shout, pointing at the water where blue scales sparkled beneath the surface. The adults would gather too, watching the peaceful scene as the Majalor swam near the surface, sometimes waving to the humans. The fishermen would carefully navigate their boats around the areas where the Majalor swam, and there was an unspoken agreement about sharing the river's resources. But peace never lasts forever. One fateful morning, Okiki, one of the most respected fishermen in Okuku Kingdom, went out early to cast his net. The sun had barely risen. A day, and the Majalor still clung to the water surface as he threw his nets. They landed in an area where young Majalor children were playing. "Human, you're too close to our children!" a Majalor man shouted, his voice sharp with warning. Ike pulled at his net. "I've been fishing here for 20 years. These waters belong to everyone, not where our children swim." The Majalor's face darkened with anger. All the Majalor began shifting uneasily. A young mermaid swam too close to one of Ike's nets and became tangled. "My son!" a Majalor screamed, diving toward the net. "In the chaos!" As the Majalor tried to free the child and Ike tried to protect his nets, something went terribly wrong. The mermaid child was hurt, and the angry Majalor killed Okiki. His body was found floating in the river. The news reached King Elemi within the hour. The king sat on his throne, his face growing darker as the village elder explained what had happened. "Your Majesty," the elder finished, "the people are afraid. If the Majalor can kill our best fisherman..." King Elemi stood, his voice thundering through the throne room. "Bring me my advisors and send word to every village along the river." That evening, the king made his proclamation from the palace steps. "They have taken one of our own," he thundered, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "From this day forward, no Majalor shall be permitted to swim at the surface of Odo-Pupa River. Any who dare defy this decree shall face immediate death. The peace between our peoples is forever broken." The Majalor retreated to the river's bottom, where they established their own kingdom under Mbatu, a strong and wise man who became their king. Years passed, and in the underwater kingdom, life adapted to the darkness of the deep. Mbatu's daughter Ekwere grew into a curious young mermaid who often asked questions about the world above. One day, while helping her mother prepare a home for a celebration, Ekwere couldn't contain her curiosity. "Mother," she said, "what's it like at the surface?" Her mother paused, memories flickering across her face. "Why do you ask?" My dear, I hear the older ones talking sometimes about how things used to be. They mention something called sunlight." "What is it?" Ita looked at her daughter. "Sunlight is, imagine the brightest, warmest thing you can think of. It's like that, but more beautiful than you can imagine. It makes everything glow with life. Ekwere's eyes sparkled with interest. What were the humans like before? They were different from us. They walked on two legs instead of swimming with tails. They used to be our friends. The children would wave to us, and we'd wave back. Then why can't we talk to them anymore? Because fear and anger poisoned both sides. Ita explained. One terrible day changed everything. Now we must stay here where it's safe. But Ekwere couldn't stop wondering about the surface world. Late at night, when everyone else slept, she would swim as high as she could, almost breaking the surface. The faint moonlight that filtered down fascinated her. One morning, King Mbatu noticed his daughter's distraction during breakfast. "What troubles you, my daughter?" he asked. "Father, why must we live in darkness? Surely not all humans are cruel." But Ita's face grew serious. "Ekwere, you don't understand the danger. The humans blame us for the death of one of their own. The king has ordered our death if we are seen at the surface." "But that was so long. Maybe things have changed." "Some things don't change, my dear. Promise me you won't go to the surface." Ekwere remained silent, and her father sighed heavily. Meanwhile, in the palace above, Prince Okiki was facing his own struggles. His father, King Elimi, had summoned him to the throne room for what had become a regular argument. "Son," the king said, "I have received another message from King Mbatu. His daughter would make an excellent match." Okiki sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "Father, I understand, but no." King Elemi slammed his fist on the table. "Every suitable young woman in the kingdom has been presented to you. What more are you waiting for?" "I want to marry for love," Okiki replied quietly. The king scoffed. "Love is a luxury we cannot afford. We need stability." "Ah, what about my future?" Okiki asked softly. "Your future is the kingdom." King Elemi shouted. "When will you understand that your personal desires don't matter?" "They should matter to my father, if not to my king," Okiki replied, then immediately regretted his words. "Get out," the king commanded, his voice dangerously quiet. "Get out of my sight until you're ready to act like the prince you're supposed to be." Seeking solace, Okiki found himself walking toward the Odo-Pupa River. The moon cast a silver path across the water as he settled on a fallen log near the bank. The gentle lapping of the waves against the shore always helped calm his troubled mind. That's when he saw her. A head emerged from the water, followed by shoulders and the most beautiful face he had ever seen. A mermaid. Her scales had an unusual glittering blue tint. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved. "Please," she whispered, "don't call the guards. You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous. Don't." "I know," Ekwere said, moving closer to the bank. "But I had to see what it was like up here. Everything is so different. The air, the sounds, the way light moves." "I'm Okiki," he found himself saying. "I'm Ekwere." She smiled, and Okiki felt his heart skip a beat. "This is my first time seeing the surface." "Is that the moon?" Ekwere asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "Yes," he said, pointing upward. "And those are stars. They're beautiful. We can see a little bit of light through the water." but nothing like this. They talked for hours that night, sharing stories about their different worlds. Okiki told her about life in the palace, the pressure to marry, and his dreams of finding true love. Ekwere spoke about the underwater kingdom, her father's wisdom, and her growing curiosity about the surface world. Hours passed like minutes. I should go, Ekwere said as the sky began to lighten. My mother will be worried. Will you come back tomorrow night? Okiki asked hopefully. Ekwere hesitated and then nodded. Yes, but we must be careful, girl. When she returned home, her mother was waiting. Where have you been? She demanded, her face pale with worry. I just wanted to see the surface. God, Ekwere, have you lost your mind? They will kill you if they catch you. Maybe they're not all as cruel as you think. Not cruel. Her mother's voice rose. They would kill you without a second thought. Promise me you won't go up there again. But Ekwere couldn't make that promise. Night after night, she and Okiki met by the river. They shared stories, dreams, and eventually their hearts. Their love grew deeper with each meeting, despite the danger. One night, after several months of meetings, Ekwere arrived looking troubled. What's wrong? Okiki asked immediately, concerned. My father, he's arranging a marriage for me, she said, her voice trembling. The son of his chief advisor, she added. Okiki felt his heart constrict. In 2 months' time, Ekwere looked up at him, her eyes glistening with tears. Okiki, I don't want to marry him. I love you. Their first kiss was gentle and tentative, bridging two worlds that had been separated by hatred and fear for so long. Neither of them noticed the rose their love would create until it was too late. Weeks turned into months, and their secret meetings continued. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves. One morning, Ekwere felt strange. Her swimming felt heavier, and her stomach turned with an unfamiliar sensation. When she told her mother she wasn't feeling well, her mother's experienced eyes widened with recognition. Your scales are changing color, she observed. You've been sleeping more than usual. Ekwere, are you with child? Ekwere couldn't meet her mother's gaze. Yes, she whispered. Who is the father? When Ekwere remained silent, her mother's voice grew sharp. Ekwere, who is the father? His name is Okiki, Ekwere whispered. He's human, her mother gasped. Have you lost your mind? Do you know what they'll do to you? To your child? He's not just any human. He's different, mother. He's kind and understanding. Ekwere whispered. His name is Prince Okiki. Her mother's face went pale. The son of King Elemi, the very king who ordered our banishment. Oh, Ekwere, what have you done? Devastated by her mother's reaction and desperate to find Okiki, Ekwere fled to the surface, forgetting in her distress that it was broad daylight. The moment her head broke the water surface, shots erupted from the riverbank. Nets flew through the air, and before Ekwere could dive back to safety, she was entangled. Rough hands dragged her onto the shore where angry villagers surrounded her. Please, she begged. I mean no harm, no harm, a fisherman barked. Your people meant no harm to Ike. The beating began. Fists and feet rained down on her as she tried to protect her stomach, thinking only of her unborn child. In the palace, a guard burst into the throne room. "Your Majesty, they've caught a mermaid at the river." Oki's heart stopped. Without a word to his father, he ran, his legs aching as he sprinted through the village, praying he would reach her in time. But when he arrived, it was too late. Ekwere lay still on the river bank, her shiny blue scales muddied with dirt and blood. A day, the crowd fell silent as their prince dropped to his knees beside her. "What have you done?" he whispered, then louder, "What have you done? You've killed them both, my love and my child." The crowd stepped back, shocked by his words. King Ilimi, who had followed his son, stood frozen at the edge of the gathering. From the river came a sound like thunder, and the water began to churn. Mbatu, king of the Majalor, rose from the depths, his trident glowing with power. Behind him, an army of Majalor broke the surface, their faces twisted with grief and rage, ready to turn the river red with blood. Finally, it was Eta who stepped forward to break the peace. Standing before both kings, she spoke, "My daughter died for love. Let her death be the last. Let her story teach us that hatred only breeds more hatred, while love might have shown us a better way." A new treaty was drawn up. The Majalor would no longer be banned from the surface, and humans would no longer react with violence to their presence. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. Prince Okiki never married. He devoted his life to maintaining peace between the two peoples. Every night until his death, he would sit by the river, remembering the love that changed two kingdoms.